Hey, Todd Smith here, CEO of 360 Converge. And for my awesome conversation partner today, it is one of my greatest and best friends, David Kain, president of Kain Automotive, who I've known for, I don't even know how long now, but a long, long time. I think before I was definitely gray. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for spending a few minutes today, David, and want to do a little intro, and then we'll kind of start asking some fun questions.
You bet. So Todd knows this, and I'll kind of share this. My family's been in the car business since 1952, and I came along in 1960, and like my siblings, I was carried into the dealership. I've got 8 brothers and sisters, and we were put to work as baby props. When salespeople would need to close a deal, they would say, "Hey, don't you see Mr. Kain has 9 children? So, don't you want to, hold tight and not negotiate too much harder?" So I like to say I was selling cars even as a picture on my dad's credenza. And so worked my way up through the ranks, was a janitor, a lot attendant, worked in the parts department, sold cars, and ended up running our store for 12 years as a general manager, and still am a partner in the dealership. But in 2000, actually 1999, all the world was into the internet. The bubble was fully inflated and hadn't burst yet. And I was on dealer council, and as a member of Ford's dealer council, we created a company that was designed to give dealers a leg up in digital, and it's called FordDirect.com, and it's 20 years old now. So I like to go back, and my hair was brown then, and maybe had a little bit flecks of gray, but that was fun. I flew all over the country. I left our dealership and became chief operating officer. Flew all over the country and set up internet and BDC operations for Ford and Lincoln Mercury and Jaguar Land Rover, Volvo dealers, all part of the Ford family at the time. And then wanted to move back to the gentle bluegrass of Kentucky and started Kain Automotive 17 years ago. And it's hard to believe that it's been that long. And you and I met at the very first digital dealers a long time ago, and we started teaching the 101 and 102 courses, and Mike Roscoe put us together and was matchmaker, and we've been really good buddies all the way through. And now I'm coming to you from the land of my grandson, and my daughter moved to California, and like a lot of grandparents, we followed our kid. And when the baby was born, we moved to California, and that's where I'm coming to you from today. But still thrilled to be able to help dealers, and particularly during this crisis, Todd. And I think that's the essence of you giving to the people who are viewing this, is you've always been notable in how you've provided good learning experiences for dealers. And you and I have traveled a lot with different motor companies and taught for years. And I think you're a great teacher, and I've learned a lot from you. And I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Hey, thank you, man. But this is all about you, and I'm really curious. First off, I know you put together a COVID-19 sheet for how to disaster proof your business, which I thought was really cool. So I want to make sure I get a copy, or I want you to post it the first day, as we'll put it in the first comment on here, or I can put a link right into the thing. I just want to make sure everyone has that resource, because I think it was really good. So
and I'll tell you, part of the reason why we created that, what we just called the Crisis Mitigation Guide, and we're on version 3 so far. No telling what else we'll need to do. Maybe some elements of how you come back from this will be added eventually. But what we wanted to do was to first off let people know that we have a lot of people going through this, and you're co-joined with all of your compatriots in the automotive industry, the women, the men, the young and the old, and in between, who are struggling to make sense of this, worried about their health, their safety, their viability. And I think what we saw was an opportunity to pull together good resources, some best practices, not necessarily I think you know this, we like to give proven practices, but right now we're just identifying as best practices. We'll know by the end whether they really worked, but good resources, and we've also got with all kinds of great information, scripting templates, videos that people are doing, point of sale, the paycheck protection program. So man, you talk about like monster learning in just moments. It's been unbelievable.
I feel it's like learning from like the fire hose right now. You're just like, oh, you're like, there's so much going on. So let's jump in, which I think this is interesting, and I'm going to set you up here. I don't really want to talk about the tech. I want to talk about the process and people.
Yeah.
So everyone has now jumped on digital retailing, which it's good at a very surface level. And my opinion is that is the tech isn't the driver of the success of that type of tool. Yes. I think it's leadership, people, and process. So with that being said, I assume you're getting tons of calls from your existing clients as potential clients as well right now, who are saying, hey, I'm moving to digital retailing, finally. I'm being drugged by the marketplace to go do this. I don't want to, because it's just, I'd rather just get them in. I assume you're seeing that, but what are you seeing in that regard, and how are you going to coach that from the leadership, people, and process? Because honestly, I think that's 90% of it. I think only 10% is the actual tech, and that's my personal feeling. And I'm a tech guy, because I'd rather say it's 90% tech, but I don't think it is. I think the tech supports the process, really. So because I find the dealers, and the only reason I say that is the only dealers I've seen very successful with it are insanely process driven, like Todd Caputo's store, right? That's all in to digital retailing, right? They're 100%, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, they live and breathe it. Like, you walk into the store, they walk you to a Roadster kiosk. I mean, that's like embedded. So what are your thoughts on this, and how can dealers best take advantage of it?
Yeah, so Todd, you and I both know this. For all intents and purposes, every dealer is a digital dealer, and there have been let's call it digital retailing solutions for well over 10 years, maybe even 20 years. What we're seeing is the express opportunity, the streamlined digital retailing. And I like to equate it to, like, when I go to the grocery store, I can go to self-service, which is self-service grocery shopping. I walk in, don't have to interact with anybody, and I check out and I go to the car. That's what digital retailing could be in automotive, if in fact the consumer could get access to the keys and do their own test drive and be able to move that forward. Heretofore, we've always had where the customer could get the price, get the payment, get the trade value, apply for financing. All of that has always been chunked out on the website. The trouble was it wasn't all put together. So you and I are both good friends with Todd Caputo, and in fact spent a lot of time with him when he had a business development center. And I've often said I've been to more BDC funerals than I have births. And in Todd's case, we did a BDC funeral, and the BDC director became their training manager, who's teaching all of the sales team how to actually work with customers who shop online. I want to do that. So interesting thing is, digital retailing is great if you as a manager can come in the next morning and say, how many did Roadster sell? How many did AutoFi sell? How many did the digital retailing on all the platforms, because all of them have it. Did we have any deals last night? Now, wouldn't it be great? You're sitting there and you're drinking your cup of coffee and you're like, whoa, the website sold 12 cars for us last night. Let's get those ready, right? But we don't have that yet. So digital retailing still needs the human component. The consumer can work their way through. So largely, it's all driven by the instincts and the ability of your team and their ability to communicate and understand what's driving the consumer. Because consumers get kind of tangled on the axle when they go through a website. Even if it's really well prepared and it makes total sense, they're trying to move in a linear fashion. But you and I both know when we go online, it's like, I'm going to look at Google. Oh, there's a pop. And then next thing you know, we've bounced everywhere. That's what we're seeing in these digital retailing platforms. So consumer will put 5 minutes in and they'll save it. They'll put 10 minutes in and then they'll save it. So, it still requires a human component driven by process. And you and I have talked about this. If it's not working, check the process. And then if it's still not working, check the process. Oh, and then if it's still not working, check the process. It's always about the process, whether it's the technology or the people. They have to hover around this process. And you've taught me that. We've seen it work, and it has to really be the overlay and the protector of any good digital retailing process.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a process game. But even ahead of the process, I think it's a leadership game. And it's a commitment of mental and leadership, not what the leader says, but what the leader continues to do in action in support of these programs to put in. Because my fear, just like all fear, dealers will jump to digital retailing right now. And then as soon as we get back to the new normal, whatever that looks like, it's going to go right back to, just get them in the door. We'll deal with them. Because my fear is just installing digital retailing as is will create just as much friction as not having it. I mean, because without the right leadership, communication, people, and process, tech's not doing all the lift for you there. So.
Yeah, and compared to a well-run fixed operation, service department in the dealership, the technicians have all the education, they have all the diagnostic tools, they have all the tools to be able to prepare it or repair the vehicle, but they need a leader to assign the work properly and to supervise and to coach and support. And that's got to happen when it comes to digital retailing to a large degree. Is you've got to have a leader who will sit here and say, long haul. This is not through the crisis. This is the way we want to do business, and be willing to pivot as the roadblocks occur, because inevitably there will. One of the key roadblocks you and I have talked about is, what about the guys in finance? And they're going, whoa, what about us guys? We're the closers. We're the ones that, had to do the payment. It kind of is reminiscent of that movie Office Space, where the guy is in front of the team and they're trying to understand different roles. And he goes, I'm a people person. And it turned out he didn't greet the customer. He didn't greet the engineers. He just forwarded the emails and stuff. So, ultimately, if finance is going to be reshaped through this, and I suspect it will, we're going to see a lot of sales managers be converged into the F&I process. Consumers trust what they're seeing on iPads, on laptops, in their own smartphone, to where they're doing their own deal. And I believe we're going to come out better, and we're going to come out with a more streamlined operation inside, and potentially have a greater fulfillment level for the salespeople who will say, I can do it all. And we've talked about the Champ Automotive Group, and they for years have said one price, one person, 1 hour. And I think that's kind of where we're moving. And I'm really blessed. Your clients, my clients, have all been on the cutting edge or the leading edge of this. Yep. So the lesson I give them when I start out any type of training class right now is, you're ready for this. You've been training for this for 10 years. This is your time to shine. And they really feel great about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So looking at that, the progressive dealers, there's a set of those that are always going to take advantage of marketplace tools, looking for, to me, that 1 to 5% edge, right? And now you have this new flux. I think everyone has crossed the chasm at this point into now everyone's going to do digital retailing. So the competitive advantage of it per se will not be as great. And I think it will lead more into the dealer's unique process and implementation of it. So obviously lots of dealers have laid people off. I've talked to lots of stores that had like either destroyed their entire sales team, only left managers in place, furloughed huge amounts of staff. And then all the big groups have obviously let go between, I've heard 6,000, 10,000. I've heard giant numbers of people that have lost their jobs, unfortunately, which is terrible. Because of digital retailing, and if they actually put these processes in place, do they need to bring everyone back? Or if you have a better salesperson who can do the whole deal through digital retailing, can you get away with less people and more efficient processes in tech?
Well, so let's be human about it, right? So first off, wouldn't it be great if the stores, I talked to Kevin Riley today, long-term friend. He's Alexandria Hyundai, and he's 20 years in business, and he's not laid off anybody. Wow. Our family dealership has not laid off anyone. And when you're in a situation like that, and how long our store's been in business, yeah, it's always the people. And when you think about thinking from a human standpoint, yes, technology is great, but if you do personal business development, something I've been touting for a long time is a business development dealership. So if you teach your salespeople, who literally do not cost you any money if they're on commission, and even if they are paid salary and smaller amounts, you're in a position to where their earnings will offset the base cost of having them around. And if you teach them how to do personal business development, you can actually grow your business. So what I'm saying is, first off, bring as many people back as you can afford to, and make sure you give everyone the new rules of engagement. It's not about you're good if you get someone to the floor. No, not today. You got to be great on the phone. You got to be great at texting. You got to know what an emoji is. You got to know what a GIF is. You got to be able to be modern in your approach. And I'm sorry for the guys who have been resistive to this new modern way of communication and stay off of social media and don't have an Instagram or a Facebook or even a LinkedIn account. Time for you to rise up and have someone teach you, or right now, just go to YouTube and take a class. But 78% of salespeople who are active on social media outsell their peers by 78%.
Wow.
That's all I need. So, the fact is, we got to give everybody this opportunity to say, here's the new reality. If you're going to be here, we don't have waiters. We're not sitting at a hostess stand waiting for people to come in. We are proactively in the community. We're joining clubs. We're building houses with the Habitat. We are out in it so that people know that when they see that brand on your shirt, you're part of the fabric of the community. And I think we've got to engineer that into our future, along with the technology orientation and the boost. And if they can come in with that kind of enthusiasm and recognize that that's what it's going to take, I think we should keep as many that are willing to come back.
Yeah, I agree. I think right now, any salesperson listening to this or manager, triple down in training. Even if you are furloughed or let go, train, because you're going to need to find that opportunity when it comes back. And the more training you have, the more you've beat on your craft, right, is what it is, right? The more you've perfected your skills, that will pay, dividends in the future. And right now, I feel like since we've hit this global pause button, I call it, now is that time that we can really help ourselves become better. I mean, me, I read a book a week, so that's never going to change. But I've definitely upped, like now I've had more time. So my writing and other things where I just I didn't have the time, and I couldn't afford to make the time because I've been trying to work on things. But it's very interesting. So now I feel it's like, learn those skills. I mean, learn that, those closing engagement skills, learn the digital retailing platforms as a salesperson, that you understand them, how they work, what the benefits. I think Roadster even has a university, don't they? They have classes.
Roadster, of all of them, has done the best job of providing resources online. AutoFi has done a really exceptional job. Our friend Joe St. John,
Yeah,
he does webcasts each week. I mean, there's so much free learning available. Even to viewers of this, we're going to give anybody access to Kain University online so that they can pick up some of the strategies that are proven in today's environment. And the interesting thing of it is we're refreshing all of our content to be more modern. One of my favorite books is this author, Phil M. Jones, Exactly What to Say. And I think it's great. And you can say what you want about your reading, Todd, but Dr. Seuss and Shel Silverstein really don't count, except for a couple of books. And one of them that Dr. Seuss wrote that you and I've talked about before, which is Green Eggs and Ham, which is the lesson in persistence and keep trying, and the little engine that could. So,
where we will go.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna break it out. I'm gonna break them out too, man. I'm ready still. I have a 10-year-old. Those books are still in my brain, man. So
absolutely.
Well, look, I mean, there's so valuable lessons in that. So I think, looking at it right now, you're talking to dealers. What are they thinking about? What's going on in the calls you're having?
Yeah. So just all last week and last week and a half is cash flow.
Yep.
To a person, every dealer wants to keep their employees. Every dealer doesn't want to do furloughs or layoffs. Nobody I've talked to has said, "Oh, we're going to use this as an opportunity to get rid of the bad performers." No, the truth of the matter is most everybody was running and gunning. We were in the midst of a really good year, and March, the flowers and the rain and everything, we have another spring upon us, and everybody was all fired up for that. And now we've got this April lull, and it's not that customers aren't interested, but dealers are now struggling with just cash flow. And dealers run on really wafer thin margins. And when we're not turning contracts, and thank goodness for the OEMs and their good judgment in giving floor plan relief and pulling back on the crushing interest rates that could have occurred. And you've been a Chevy dealer. I've been in the Ford business my whole life. We live by inventory turn. Yeah. We're all students of the Del Pollock Velocity program. We got to turn that capital so that we're able to bring more opportunities back in for service and so on and so forth. So dealers are struggling because they were used to that cash flow, and now they've got to apply for payroll protection, the CARES Act, and we're helping a lot of dealers through that. We're helping them to understand the dynamics of how do you account for that money if you want to get forgiveness for that loan. So there's so much going on from a business dynamic. So if you're a midline manager, take the pressure off the boss and be spectacular at working the leads, taking the inbound phone calls. I was talking to a big group this morning, the chief operating officer of the group, and he goes, "It's so wonderful to see our frontline sales managers selling cars because it's necessary." And he says, "I'm running the business parts of it, and they're doing what they're paid to do, which is to cause us to sell cars." And not surprisingly, they had a good weekend, even though they're in a state that's had some of the most rigorous shutdown laws.
Yeah, see, that's good to hear. I feel like news is doom and gloom. I like to hear the positive stories that guys are still selling cars. I talk to people every day. They're selling cars. They're just grinding through this stuff right now. And, definitely I heard all the stats like, oh, well, all these people are still shopping online. But the real question is, what's intention? Like, how many of them are actually pushing through the process to any deliverable point of, hey, a lead was actually created, a chat was engaged, a text message was sent, a phone call was initiated, those types of true metrics. And I think that's fallen off the cliff, as you said, but there are still opportunities there. Talking with Todd last week, he literally directed all four stores, all their numbers to his cell phone.
Why not? Yeah.
And then he's getting the first call, and then he moves it out to, he's got like two people in each store, and he's dancing. And I think that's just entrepreneurial. Most guys wouldn't think that way. He's like, oh, no, I want to know what's going on with these customers. And I think as a leader, you want to know what the customers are saying to you, thinking, and how those interactions are different than they were a month ago.
Well, yeah. So let's roll the tape back to 1996 when we became the Automotive dealer in the state of Kentucky. And back then you could have the whole state. It was great. And so I didn't have an internet manager. I was the only one that had a laptop. And so I worked the leads because there was no job description. There was no how to take the phone call, how to make the phone call, how to send an email. You could send an email through the Automotive CRM, and 10 minutes later, you'd say, oh, it finally went. So by doing that, by being like Todd and making, learning the experiences, so then you can go to the managers and you can say, okay, I got the lay of the land. I've done the scouting. Here's the process I want to put in place. And then stay involved at a low enough level to where you can say, here's the changes I want to make. So like, for example, people say to me, how come you're so good with tech? Well, when you spend hours upon hours with the Dell rep, the Mac rep, the Apple rep on the phone, and you watch the YouTube videos and all that, you learn it because it's a necessity. Right. Dealers today need to use this as an opportunity. You and I are friends with Jeremy Onspach with Pure Cars, and CEO of a company, sells his company, and he got back into the grind just last week because he says, I want to be right there feeling the impact of what our company is going through and what our frontline team is. And you and I just, that's our nature. So it's easy for us, but imagine, you get this big payout and it's like, hey man, I don't have to worry about the car business through the downturn. I think what we're seeing is great leaders, as you called out earlier, are reemerging, and they want the challenge. They want to climb this next hill. And I think from a health standpoint, from a community support standpoint, from a let's take care of our employees standpoint, this is a great opportunity to really stand up and be recognized. So we're seeing women and men all over the universe really step up.
Yeah, I feel like this is like Rocky IV, the ultimate comeback, right? I mean, you want, put me in the ring. Let me at him. So let's talk a little bit about, also, I think we've talked about training, we talked a little bit about tech. As you said dealers right now are focused on cash flow. That's what you're seeing. Have you seen this transitioning? Meaning, like 3 weeks ago, was it a different conversation? Now it's become cash flow, and then it's going to migrate into the next piece, because I think all these pieces will have to evolve, right? I mean, we're not going to stay in cash flow forever, because once we figure it out, they're numbers, right? I know my burn, I know my structure. What's next, do you think, that a smart dealer will dive into?
Yeah, I think awakening of the marketing machine. Sitting here and saying, as everyone has retrenched, are we going to be the aggressor in the market? Are we going to go out there and buy the keywords? And are we going to pay attention to those little incremental opportunities where everybody else is saying, not ready? And I was talking to a dealer the other day, and I was suggesting that salespeople go back in the service lane and greet customers and do equity mining and things of that nature. And he was like, oh no, that's a little too pushy. And I was like, well, if I'm a customer and I've got an opportunity to get 6-month payment deferral, I've got an opportunity to potentially get 0% financing, and you missed an opportunity when I was in there for service to present that comparative opportunity, I'm mad at you. So if we've done a good job, and I learned this years ago, and you'll appreciate it, I'll remind you of a phrase that we've talked about from time to time. The point of sale is the point of resale. And what we've got to realize is when we delivered those vehicles a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, we should have seeded the ground for that future business. So every time someone comes in, they should get used to getting an update. I love the opportunity for me to be able to go out there and say, hey, Todd, thanks so much for coming in for service. I see you're getting your maintenance done. By the way, I ran an update. Here's your current position. Here's what your vehicle's value is. Here's what you owe on the vehicle. Looks like here in about 6 months or whatever, you're going to be to a point where you might be earning equity. We can start taking a look at things like that for you. So, hey, listen, have a great day. They're going to take wonderful care of you back here. And then you turn to walk away and the guy goes, hold on. We just had a baby, or I just got a new job, or tell me about that. So we can't be fragile. Consumers aren't fragile. They've been stuck in their home. They've been thinking about budgets. They've been thinking about this. And when we present a better opportunity to them and we position ourselves in alignment with our manufacturers and we say, your health and well-being is really critical. We've got great processes in place. We've got to your door type strategies so you can drive at home or drive at work. Customers are going to say, thank goodness I've got the wherewithal. I've got a good job. I've got good savings. I've got good ability. Yeah, I'm ready to take advantage of this. And I was talking to a big group in Dallas, and I said, so we've identified that most customers are needs customers or opportunists, or maybe they're just explorers. So if they're needs, help them out, get them in a new vehicle. If they're opportunists, they're probably sitting there going, hell yeah, now's my time to get out of this car and get into another one. And the explorers, give them an opportunity to give them information and nurture them till they come around and buy. And I think that's what we're starting to see with the good dealers is they're segmenting their approaches based on the mindset of the consumer.
Yeah, I agree. And thinking on that, it comes down to, I think any further along salespeople, as a dealer, I would have them in my CRM cleaning it up right now. I would have cleaners cleaning, and I would probably send my data out now, really clean it up, my DMS CRM, get a unified customer view. I think is critical with as much data around that customer. So when you, as you say, when you're coming back into the market, you can be much more aggressive and accurate for deliverability, for not sending, Todd Smith 4 emails or 6 direct mail pieces on a car I sold 5 years ago. I think now is the time to this pause button to let us clean things up, to go back into the market, with your messaging. And I think that to me is just smart business, But
yeah, and think about the high achieving salespeople, the ones who, they show you their smartphone and they go, Todd Smith, here's a picture. Here's the vehicle he was interested in, and his wife's name and his kid's name, and here's the colors that they want to have, and here's the motivators. They also are, Eagles fans, and they've got veteran stadium seats in their office, and that kind of stuff. So that's really the enrichment that we can go through, and we start to build good habits while we're coming out, and that personal business development where we really get all the information on their family, their occupation, the things that they're into. Are they skiers? Are they hunters? Are they opera fans? I want to know all that stuff, and as we clean out the database, let's enrich the database. And when you look at your 360 tool where you're talking about lead appending and the things that really motivate me, when we can have one of our clients go into the CRM and actually do that appending of social data, their picture, the things they're into, that's exactly playing to what we're trying to accomplish.
I agree. And that's where I feel like somehow sales was an art. Like when I started selling cars in 90, and the guys who trained me, they were like master chefs of, customer relationship. I mean, they knew everything. It's like, oh, they go to church on Sunday. They have 3 children. He buys cars at this author. This is where he's worked. His wife, his name is, she makes a great apple pie. They have a dog named Bo Jangles. Like everybody knew, the top guys knew their customers, and they kept great relationships. And somehow like the internet came in and it jostled all this. Those practices disappeared from the business. And then everyone said CRM is it remembers it all for you. Well, it only remembers what you put into it. And when you don't put nothing into it, it doesn't remember anything. And then you're actually worse off than you were before you relied on that type of tech. And that was like, I can tell you, like Warren, who sat next to me, this guy crushed. He was at that time a 35 car a month guy every month, like clockwork. Like he was a machine. Jerry, who sat on the other side, super alcoholic, lived in a trailer. It didn't matter. That guy was still 35, 40 cars a month. And I got those guys were my oh, this is how you do this. It's a people business. And I think somehow we lost that. But here's that time where we should be thinking that way again and making it personal, right? So
it's so true. And I have part of the presentation when we talk about this personal business development. I show this young man, Brad Butler, who works with the Furman organization not far from you. And Brad, every day, nearly every day, has a picture of a delivery and a thank you. And customers are posting back, this is my third one. This is, my friends and family, about 40 vehicles from you. He's giving of himself. You look at Mark Sanders, who has all of his customers from 2006 forward in his smartphone. And that kind of information. Bill May, who worked with me at the dealership, Bill, every morning he would come in around 10 o'clock, and I thought, you lazy son of a gun. And I didn't know from 8:30 until 9:30 or 8 until 9:30, he was down at a coffee shop scooping up opportunities. And I just thought he was sleeping in. So, we've got to get away from this, put your nose against the glass and look on the lot and start making sure that our team members really create their own business opportunities. So if you have a BDC working well with a personal business development salesperson, you truly create a business development culture. And this becomes a business development dealership as a result of that.
Yeah, I love that. And so do you, also thinking on that, do you feel we're going to, well, look, every dealer operates differently, and there's no single way to operate successfully in this industry. That I've realized. There's no you have to do it this way, Mr. Kain, otherwise it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. You can carve up the pizza pie 100 different ways. Yeah. That being said, do you feel there will be more of the cradle to grave structure coming out of this? Meaning training salespeople, bringing the ones back that are going to handle more? Or do you think the pendulum will swing more back to the older way to do business and just kind of grind it? Where do you think we're going to end up? So I'm really curious.
So first off, during this crisis, let's change it from cradle to grave to cradle to sell, or I prefer A to Z.
Okay. Right? Okay. I say cradle to grave. I just mean hey, from the time he's born until he dies, I'm going to sell him every car he's ever going to have.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So, but the point being is, I think it all comes down to one word: leadership. And if you've got leadership in the operation, leadership is going to sit here and say, am I better off having my A to Z or cradle to grave salespeople really doing their business development activities on their own, while I've got another team that is doing customers and equity, lease returns, business development, and other true growth opportunities, stirring them up, working inbound calls, inbound leads, and affording them an opportunity to at least have that as a safety net. So I think great A to Z salespeople should be hyper capable of doing internet leads, handling inbound phone calls. And then a BDC is able to be a safety net during times of Saturdays or high appointment times, to where they might work the leads as a backstop, but then they also do the business development activities, which we've talked about this. You and I have given presentations on. Are they a BSC, a business survival center, or are they a BDC, which is a business development center? And fully 90% of all BDCs are BSCs, meaning all they do is handle things that salespeople aren't good at, inbound calls and inbound leads. Salespeople aren't good at that. We know that, they just aren't trained to it. So what if we did that hybrid, and we had salespeople handle leads, handle calls, and then when they can't, it flows over to a BDC team that all their day is spent, developing opportunities and generating true business opportunities. So I think they can coexist, but I think the roles and responsibilities need to be rewritten.
Does that need to be in-house or outsourced? And look, I'm just saying, and I don't have the answer. I just know it's just costly, right? BDCs are not a cheap unit to have, right? I remember Caputo. How much was Caputo spending? It was like,
oh my God, it's a ridiculous amount. But here's the thing: is if you create the right environment, the BDC doesn't have to be this duplicative setup as the sales floor. However, you look at some of the economies of scale that come when you have 10 rooftops or 20 rooftops, and you've got a big business development center, maybe centralized opportunity. I think there are some benefits to that, but you have to overcome the cost of that. So some of our big groups have said, look, by the time I factor in the cost of a BDC, I'd have to sell twice as many cars. So we're not going to do it. And even if we're not so good with handling leads, we're still not going to have that cost structure. So I think we need to whiteboard this thing and make the decision at your dealership, what do you want to accomplish, and be able to sit here and say, the only way I'm truly going to get out from under the cost of a BDC is to streamline it and make sure that all of my team is a BDC.
Right. So it's flipping then to train your staff up in the skill tools and set versus fractionalizing your team with hyper skill sets. Like, I'm a master of phone calls, or I'm the master of equity mining, or I'm the master of this, which to me, anytime you individually eyes them out, you create chinks in armor, because if you lose that guy, you got to plug another guy in, versus having people cross-trained across things, which is an interesting, thing. And that's why I always feel like you kind of want that well-rounded person now.
Yeah, and let's call it what it is. I mean, to a large degree, there are some really great business development centers. I'd like to say that the ones that we set up are really well operated and are generating exceptional results for the dealerships. But you can't hide from the fact that they are expensive if they aren't doing more than just inbound leads and inbound calls. You've got to expand the roles and responsibilities to make them pay for themselves. Handling service scheduling, handling unsold showroom prospects, handling lease returns, handling customers and equity, all things that get shoved to the back burner except for events like this. And then all of a sudden, man, I can do customers and equity. Give me all the lease returns. I'm the guy. Well, you can't haphazardly achieve success. And I love that this Preston Farrier with Furman Automotive Group, I went in their store about 12 years ago, and I used the word hope. Todd, I hope you're enjoying this conversation. I hope that chair's comfortable. And about halfway through, we took a break and he goes, dude, we don't use the word hope here at Furman. And I was like, oh, I've probably said it 50 times. And he goes, I know, and it's hurting me every time. He says, when the downturn occurred in 2008, we lost all hope. And from this point forward, we make plans and we have expectations. So if a manager comes into a meeting, they have to say, here's my plan and here's our expectations. Guys, we've got to get to that point. We've got to sit here and say, as little as we wanted to in the last 12 years since the last downturn, we fattened up. We got a little careless with our marketing. We got careless with our hiring. We got careless with about everything. We got a lot of fat. We got to exercise, trim it off, and we're going to start over. But we can't hope our way out of this. We've got to make plans and have expectations.
That's a really good point. I love that, yeah, there's no hope. There's plans, expectations, and deliverables, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I love that, man. That's like those gems that we get when we talk. That's why I love our conversation so much. I always feel like I walk away. I'm like, yeah, that was really good. I'm picking up something. I'm like learning through Kain. Here I am. All the way from California.
Hashtag Kain trained, right?
Yeah, Kain trained, man. However the K goes, I don't know. But now you're like West Coast guy,
That's right. We're cool.
Yeah, you're cool now, man. You got a hand symbol. You're like, And no, that's really awesome, man. I appreciate us as we always get to talk, and I hope others will get the benefit from it. Now, one last question, because I always like to have a fun question. Grandparent advice. How is it being a grandparent? Which I know is crazy because I know you have a new grandson. So how is it? And how have you been handling it during this COVID-19? Because I know you moved to California to spend time with them. So it's all about the technology, right?
Yeah. So multiple times during the day, I get to go see my grandchild, and he'll probably pop up here in just a moment. And there's my wife. There's Todd Smith. We're on a Conversations with Todd. And there's my grandbaby.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm coping. Yeah. Hey, hi, Duncan.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's how it works, and that's how I'm coping with COVID-19.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, you're all the way out there now. I mean, you've changed up a lot of stuff, man. Kain has become progressive, got into a co-working space. I think there's a lot of changes going on at Kain Automotive. So I always like to know,
she's back, and he's back. So so Todd, this is exactly how it works, and I get to see that little rascal multiple times during the day, and I'll introduce you to our viewing audience. Hi, Duncan.
Hi, Duncan.
Buddy.
Say call you later, Papa.
Bye-bye.
That's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you, and it's been great. And yeah, man, I feel like this is such a big time for leadership training, for process training, get your people up to speed training. And, it's one thing a lot of times it gets thrown to the side when things happen, right? Yeah. We got to cut back. So we cut training. And then they cut marketing, and then we cut other things. And I feel that, the better trained guys are going to come out of this stronger. And I read I think Harvard Business Review did after the 2008 turndown, they reviewed something on the range of like 1,000 companies, and the companies that fired people versus the companies that either furloughed or cut back pay. The people that furloughed and cut back pay came out of the recession at a much faster rate than the people that cut and had to start over, because it's grinding those wheels to get them started. It's like starting a train. All the energy and intensity is getting that wheel to turn one, and then it picks up. But that takes a long time versus never letting your train stop. So
It's interesting. I have for our progressive clients rebooked every month with the um, optimism that we're coming back. So, Suburban Collection in Detroit. Um, I booked for April. Well, we can't go anywhere in April. I'm sorry, booked for March. Can't go anywhere in March. Supposed to go in there in February. Booked into a later week. We moved back a week. Then moved into April. Now we're looking at May. All of our progressive clients, the ones who are really crushing it during this downtime and doing quite well despite the circumstances, all have already set up the training. And each day we get calls from prospective dealers saying, hey, we've been on the fence, now we're ready to commit. We've got to bring this back. And you are absolutely right. If you look at that 2008 downturn where we had the OEM bankruptcies and stuff, and General Motors and Chrysler shut down a lot of stores. Remember when it came back and all those little towns that lost their stores, General Motors and Chrysler were like, we got to bring those dealers back. And it took them a while. Ford really advantaged themselves at the time because they didn't close points to that level.
yeah,
I think you look at your employees the same way. If you can keep the people who trust and can honor the relationship with the dealership, keep them if you can. And certainly, Todd, you and I can't be Pollyanna and sit here and go, that's just what you should do when their life and livelihood is on the line and they're about to lose the family store or the big corporation that doesn't have any choice. That's reality, and we appreciate that. But if you're able to, it certainly will truncate your growth back.
Yep, I agree. So thank you so much. Now, I know you're going to have some resources that I guess you want to send me links for
I'll
those.
send them to you, and then you can share them out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, it was great. See you later.